is Ayako Mie. I'm going to be the moderator for this session tonight. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to the FCCJ at Friday night. I'm sure you have busy night plans and stuff. Today's topic is everybody's favorite, North Korea. As we all know, the international community has been alarmed by the rapid advances of nuclear technology by this hermit nation under Kim Jong-un. And also this country has severe human rights violations, including kidnapping a lot of foreigners, including Japanese. Mr. Ojea Quintana, with much experiences, has become the UN Special Rapporteur of North Korea in August. And before that, he was a Special Rapporteur in Myanmar. And he actually met with the family of Japanese abductees yesterday and pledged to work on this issue. And he's also producing a report on the state of human rights violations in North Korea. And he just told me that he's going to be in North Korea in March as well. So without much ado, let's hear from Mr. Ojea Quintana.
Welcome everyone, and thank you for being here this evening. I thank FCCG for the invitation, and I just came from a press conference with the local media after this first mission to the Northeast Asia in my capacity as a special rapporteur for the situation of human rights in DPRK. I visited South Korea, Seoul, last week. I spent 1 week in South Korea holding meetings with the authorities, the Republic of Korea authorities, different ministers. I also have the possibility to interview 9 people from North Korea who left the country recently also. I also had very interesting meetings with the civil society organizations. Some of these organizations are following up on the issue of accountability, documenting cases, and exploring approaches, alternatives to the question of justice, truth, and accountability. Some other civil society organizations dedicate their work to have a human rights impact on the ground, human rights and humanitarian impact on the ground. What I'm saying is these organizations are working in DPRK, so they are engaging with the DPRK authorities. Those meetings were also very relevant for me. I believe that all these groups deserve the support of the United Nations and my support as a special rapporteur. That was the mission in Seoul. Then I came here to Japan also for the first time. I met different authorities from the government. I want to express my gratitude to the government of Japan for inviting me, for allowing me to meet different authorities. I met here in Japan the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the cabinet headquarters on the abduction issue, the Ministry of Justice, the National Police Agency, the Cabinet Intelligence Office, as well as with members of the Parliament. That were the meetings with the government offices, and I also met with families of abduction victims and persons who left the DPRK. Bueno, I said that. And here in Japan, I also had meetings with the civil society organizations, also with experts on DPRK, and that was it here in Japan for my first mission to the Northeast Asia. I am preparing a report. This mission is in preparation of my report to the Human Rights Council that I will present next March in 2017. You should know that tomorrow there are 2 experts appointed by the United Nations who will be here in Tokyo. These 2 experts are mandated to prepare a report, a specific report on the issue of accountability, the way forward in respect to how to address justice, truth and accountability in respect to human rights abuses in North Korea. This group of experts, their report will be presented with my report in March, all together. This is the framework that the United Nations established for the future in regard to North Korea. Their report will be an annex of my report as a special rapporteur, so we are working in coordination. So our reports are coherent, especially in regards to the issue of accountability. I would say 2 more things. One, that my meetings with what the society in South Korea calls defectors, some others calls them refugees. I tend to call them people who left DPRK, were very important meetings for me. It was the first time that I had a chance to have face-to-face conversation with someone recently leaving DPRK, and I heard about the human rights abuses in that country. And at the same time, I should say that these people have resilient personalities, and they were very well aware about their rights. And that was a very important feature of the meeting. I also met here, I told you, the families of those who were abducted many years ago. That meetings were very important. You should know that I am coming from Argentina, where I am based. And the experience in Argentina in respect to the enforced disappearances is very important. So I understand very well what is the plight and the suffering of the people who were abducted, and especially the families, the relatives of those who are looking for those abductees. So that meeting was extremely important, and it helps me to further understand the gravity of the circumstances in regard to the abductions. So I will finish by saying to you that I believe in the 2-track approach as a human rights rapporteur for the time being. First track is to further explore the accountability, the ways of hold to account those responsible for human rights abuses. This is still going on. As I say, the group of independent experts are coming here tomorrow. We'll be presenting reports next March to the GA. You also know that the General Assembly, the 3rd Committee of the General Assembly, a few days ago, passed again a new strong resolution condemning the human rights situation in the DPRK, and including also the call to the Security Council to refer the case to the ICC. So the issue of accountability it continues to be very important, strong, and I'm ready to follow up on that. But at the same time, I am a rapporteur who just started with this mandate, and I have been, as the presenter has said, the rapporteur for Myanmar in the past, from 2008 to 2014. I started as a rapporteur in Myanmar while the military government was in power. They were in power for 40 years. But my experience with that mandate indicates how important it is to try to seek engagement with the concerned government. And this is something that I call, this is what I call the 2nd track, and I'm trying to follow up also in this regard. To what extent there's going to be any chance to have an engagement with the DPRK authorities, of course bearing in mind that my predecessors had a very difficult time in this respect. So I think I will leave it here, and I will open the floor for your comments and questions and observations. Thank you very much.
So we have plenty of time. So if you have a question, please address your name and affiliation and make the questions very quick. Andy?
Hi there, this is Andy Sharp from Bloomberg. Thanks for coming to the club. 2 questions. The first one is the defectors or the refugees you met, how recently had they moved to South Korea? And could you go into some detail about the kind of abuses of human rights that they talked about? Thank you.
I said, that some of them were recent arrivals, some month ago. So the information that they had was very relevant, especially that I have to present a report in March, trying to have updated information. And we all know how also challenging is to access to reliable and updated information. And I, as a rapporteur, I have to be responsible in this respect about the information that I provide to the United Nations. So their information was very important. Some of information had to do with the treatment of prisoners in the detention centers. I would say the ill treatment. And the other information that I can, let me just anticipate to you, but I will not go further on substantive human rights abuses, because I need to build also my assessment, not only in information from the factors, but also from information coming from other sources. But the situation of women living defecting from North Korea and going to China, and then going all the journey down to South Korea, and the information in this respect were very important. I would say that I heard stories about the fear of being repatriated to North Korea. That's an issue that seems to continue. So I have some more information, but as I say, we'll keep it for the time being. And remind me your second point.
That was it. I was just asking about what kind of abuses there was at work.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
My name is Gebhard Hilscher. I'm a free journalist from Germany. What sort of instruments does the United Nations have, in your belief, to do anything upon your findings? Of course, you said one measure is to hand the information over to the Security Council or Security Council of the UN. But what other measures do you think you have, or what are you trying to get other people or other organizations or member states to do? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. It's a very difficult one, though, because we are talking about as you say, what instruments we have at the United Nations to make member states to comply with their international obligations that they accepted voluntarily. I don't have a straightforward answer to that. I'm sorry. One of the instances that is now in process is the issue of accountability. Of course, accountability, it is important because it may act as a deterrence of human rights abuses. And also accountability and justice processes is a way of reassuring our conviction that universal values of human rights are important. So this is one of the responses so far from the international community in regards to how to deal, what will be the actions to be taken in respect to the human rights abuses. Now, again, let me go back to the issue of cooperation, which might sound at the moment not quite relevant, but again, if you go into the United Nations Charter, you see that at the beginning, in the purposes, one of the elements is, one important pillars of the United Nations is cooperation. And cooperation not in the easy situations where two countries are friend countries, in the difficult situations. That's the challenge. And I think I will try to, I will further try to explore cooperation, not only with the PRK, but also to other important players like China, Russia, Mongolia. One of the problems in the Northeast Asia is that there is no regional organization like we can find in Southeast Asia with ASEAN, at the European Union, and the OAS in the Americas. Which sometimes allows you to work closely towards engagement, towards addressing issues, etc. This is not the case. But still, as I say, I'm trying to reach out those member states of the United Nations that can play a role, those who have diplomatic relationships with North Korea, who have offices and embassies in Pyongyang, and I have been doing that in my trip to New York. I have been in New York presenting my report last October. On the 27th of October, I presented my first report, and I have meeting with these countries. I've been in Geneva also working with a group of independent experts. I have meeting delegations like Brazil, Indonesia, and some others. I met the representative of Cuba as well. I'm trying to find out what will be their willingness to cooperate in addressing constructively the human rights situation in North Korea.
Justin?
Thank you. Justin McCurry from The Guardian. The Obama administration's policy towards North Korea is widely regarded to have been a failure, particularly with regard to North Korea's nuclear and ballistic missile programs, but also in relation to human rights. So I was wondering, what would you like to see the next president of the United States do differently with respect to human rights in order to put that issue higher on the agenda and make some sort of concrete action more likely? Thank you.
I will respond to your question, but first let me say that I always try to avoid political analysis or political speculations as a human rights rapporteur, and specifically in the case of the DPRK, this is important because one of the arguments of the DPRK government to reject human rights resolutions, country resolutions, is that they are politicized. This is use of politicization. So I always try to be very careful in this respect. Now, I can respond because I am making a call to all member states of the United Nations to I would say, prioritize human rights and prioritize impact on the ground. Policies that can have an impact on the ground in terms of improvement, even the smallest improvement on the ground. So whether or not the policy of President Obama has gone in that direction, or whether or not the policy of the new administration will go in that direction, it's going to be a question that I will be looking at, definitely. It is of my interest, and again, I believe that trying to seek engagement, it is important. There is clearly a relationship between the security issue or the tensions in the Korean Peninsula and in Northeast Asia between this issue and human rights. And there are different angles in this respect. If you see the Security Council sanctions resolution, one of the lines in the resolution, the Security Council expressed that they are concerned about the diversion of resources to military purposes instead of going to the needs of the people. So there is a humanitarian dimension in the Security Council resolutions. This is one view of how is the interrelationship between human rights and the security. But at the same time, other angles of the relationship indicates that the escalation of the tensions has limiting the space for improvement. For example, on the issue of abductions, the escalation of tensions has limited space for dialogue. The issue of separation of families in South Korea and North Korea, the escalation of tensions have limited space for improvement in this respect. So this interrelationship between these two problems, it is of my concern, and I am following up on where things are going.
Süddeutsche Zeitung Neidhardt. Maybe just a follow-up first. Would you agree with me that the neighboring countries, including Japan, South Korea, and also the US, have not prioritized the human rights? Japan, maybe with the exception of the abductees, but the human rights for North Koreans themselves. They have not prioritized human rights, but neglected them for many, many years. But that was just a follow-up. I have two other questions. Why didn't you go to China on your first trip here? Because we probably will learn more about North Korea than both here and in South Korea. And when we talk to officials both in Japan and in South Korea, we get the impression they don't know much more about North Korea than we do ourselves. Now, you spoke to the intelligence officer in the cabinet here. Actually, in the South Korean press even says that their government has no idea about North Korea. Did you get the same impression?
Thank you. The responses from these governments in respect to their priorities is that both are the priorities. Now, what are the dynamics in the context of the escalation of tensions, etc., etc.? That's another thing. But in my meetings with them, the two issues are a priority. I met the representative of China to the United Nations in Geneva in September. I would say that it was a productive meeting with them, and I extended a request to visit China to have a discussion with the authorities of China about their policies, how do you see the situation in North Korea, what are the best ways to address the problem. But so far I have not received a response. I think that it's important to try to reach out to these countries. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the authorities of the countries that you mentioned, like Japan, South Korea, the US, and particularly in respect to their intelligence service. But my sense, and I just said it, is that it is still very challenging to access to reliable and updated information. I feel that sometimes there are statements, I'm not talking about the government now, the governments, but sometimes there are statements that are being repeated and repeated and repeated without too much in-depth analysis. And this is an element that I have to pay attention to, because because my report to the Human Rights Council next March needs to be a report which to be useful to all parties of the problem.
My name is Lang, and I'm at Asia Times in Hong Kong. The UN report in 2014 on North Korea said the gravity scale and nature of human rights violations in North Korea are without parallel in the contemporary world. Yet you've just made two parallels with Myanmar and your own experience in Argentina. But are you of the opinion that you are really dealing with a very, very different animal here? I mean, you've talked about accountability. North Korea doesn't care about accountability. It's made it very clear. My second question, if I may, is that in that same report, which documented rape, infanticide, torture, starvation, and executions, it said there was an estimated 120,000 people in labor camps in North Korea. There was a report out of Amnesty International on November 22nd showing new satellite imagery that the camps are being expanded, or, you know, it looks like they're being expanded. Do you have any comment on that, and do you have any further estimates of how many people are being held in the labor camps in North Korea? Thank you.
Yes, I made parallels because some of the issues have a parallel with situations that I have been dealing with in the past, in terms of grave and gross human rights abuses. Actually, as a Myanmar rapporteur back in 2012, in one of my reports, I called for the establishment of a commission of inquiry, the similar commission of inquiry that then, in the case of DPRK, was established. So I think there are parallels. Now, at the same time, there are a number of differences, which as a new rapporteur on the DPRK, I am in the process of trying to figure out how they function, how the system in DPRK functions in terms of different issues. And of course, some of this functioning was described by the COI report, but by me, my predecessor, Mr. Marzuki Darusman. So there is a lot of information and knowledge out there about it. But as a new reporter, it is for me the time to try to understand better about this this political system in North Korea. The statements coming from the DPRK in respect to accountability, or the efforts towards accountability by the international community, shows that well, actually what they say is that they reject it. They reject that absolutely. It is very difficult to we are with the group of independent experts trying to explore more about what are the challenges in respect to accountability. Accountability of, as I say, grave on gross human rights abuses in DPRK. Accountability needs to bear in mind the voice of the victims and the voice of the people, and it is very difficult to access and to know, at least in general terms, what are the views of the people from DPRK at the moment in respect to accountability. This might sound I would say even naive, but the reality is that if we are challenging to look into how to hold accountable the authorities of DPRK, we need to understand also how the DPRK people think about all these issues. Anyway, maybe I'm not that clear in respect to accountability, but it is something that it is on the human rights agenda at the moment. It is alive, it is moving forward, and I hope the group of experts, together with my contribution, will be able to provide a more concrete answer by March on how to move in this respect. Now, I am now forgetting the second part of your question, which was important. I want to respond.
Was the amnesty report at the labor camps?
The labor camps. Yes, again, the information, access to information, it is a challenge in respect to the labor camp, to the, well, which is called the political prison camps. The information, the scientific information coming from the satellite images, it is important. I need to use that information together with some other information to get a more realistic idea of what is the situation of political prison camps in DPRK. So if you ask me about a number, at this moment I can only repeat the numbers of the COI report. And I will try to figure out a more detailed situation in my report next March. At this moment, and especially from this mission to the Northeast Asia, I am not able to give you a response in respect to the numbers, and even in respect to further what is the situation in those camps.
Any more questions? Justin.
If there's no one else.
Oh, I don't see anybody else, so. I'm sorry, am I missing? I'm sorry. Did anybody raise hands?
No, okay. I'll make it quick. Thank you. I just wondered, in your meetings with the relatives of people who've been abducted by North Korea, whether any of them held out any realistic hope of being reunited with their family members, or at least being given a believable account of what actually happened to them. And just as a follow-up to that, did any of the family members that you met express an opinion on the approach towards the abductee issue being taken by the government of Shinzo Abe? Thank you.
They want the relatives to return. This is what they want. They want the relatives, as I say, to at least they know, they want information about the whereabouts, about the fate of their relatives. This is what they clearly want at the moment. They are, I would say, frustrated by the current state of affairs in respect to the possibility that this happens. It is clear that the limited space for negotiation and dialogue with the PRK is also limiting the possibility for these abductees to return to their families. So they are not. This moment is a moment which is a moment with a lot of sorrow, with a lot of frustration from these families, and this was a clear picture that I got from those meetings. They expressed, I would say, they expressed that they just said that the Japanese governments were supporting them. I would put it like that.
Okay, can I ask a question? If I may, I have three questions. So you talked about the interrelations of the escalation and solving the human rights violation issues, and then you said escalation of the tension has limited the room, the space for, solving this human rights issues. So are you suggesting that we should be somehow de-escalating the tension, meaning maybe we are going to be imposing less sanctions, or what are you suggesting, like in terms of it's interrelationship of escalation and solving this human rights violation issues? And also you said seeking engagement concerned government. What exactly are you looking for? Engagement meaning Japanese government relentlessly working with North Korean government, seeking some. Can you elaborate on what you mean by engagement of concerned government? And then also you mentioned that you have been talking to several governments, Geneva and in Geneva and New York, and you mentioned specifically Cuba. But is there any governments or any countries that has been showing any concrete cooperation, intention to cooperate in a concrete way?
Well, thank you for your three questions.
Sorry.
I'm not going to elaborate about the policies of the governments in regards to the nuclear proliferation in North Korea and the missile proliferation. What I did was have a meeting in New York with a panel of experts of the Security Council Committee, which we adopts the sanctions. And what we discussed is the level of impact that sanctions might have on the livelihood of the people living in the PRK. This is of my concern, I believe. That's why I requested a meeting, and we had that meeting. So, so these are the issues that I believe that the member states of the United Nations should bear in mind when defining their policies in respect to the security issue. At the same time, isolation and confrontation is also, as I say, limiting the space. So I am just making an assessment of how I see the situation in the Korean Peninsula, but I'm not going to, in this case, make any recommendation to member states. When I talk about engagement, and let me tell you what I think about engagement with the DPRK. I requested a meeting with the DPRK authorities in Geneva. That's my official channel of communication. So far, I hadn't had the possibility to meet the DPRK in Geneva. So this is still in process. This exchange of communication with the DPRK government is in process. I believe that engagement and cooperation, especially in this kind of circumstances, take time. And I know that victims don't have time on their side, especially the abductees, especially the separate families, and also the people living in the DPRK. But engagement and cooperation takes time. So I am in the process of trying to build a connection with the DPRK government. You may know that a few days ago in New York, one DPRK representative, in reaction to a question from a journalist in respect to the cooperation with this special rapporteur, the response was that the DPRK will be accepting Mr. Quintana in his capacity as a law professor, but not in his capacity as a special rapporteur. This was a statement. And of course, I'm not going to get into a dilemma at all in this respect. I see that this is a gesture, and what I say, I am willing to further discuss this idea. I will put it like that with EPRK.
Any country showing any intention to cooperate?
The tensions in the Korea Peninsula and making very difficult for states to find space to think about the human rights strategy. I would put it like that. So I am raising attention to them about it constantly, which each member state. But the whole, as I say, escalation of tensions in the Korea Peninsula it seems that they are using all the energy of member states in regard to North Korea, and there's no. I don't see they are finding space to discuss or to redesign their strategy towards the human rights agenda. So it has been a long mission to the Northeast Asia. This is actually my last day. I'm leaving to Argentina, where I'm based, tomorrow in the afternoon. So it seems that there are more questions.
Questions? There's two people, so why don't we go one? Okay.
Süddeutsche Zeitung again. You seem to be talking as if the Japanese abductees are still alive, those 17 that Japanese government has named. The DPRK says they are not alive anymore, and the Japanese government some 7 or 8 or maybe 10 years ago had some proof that they were alive, but these proofs were like DNA proofs. They were dismissed as not reliable. Now, do you believe they are still alive, or are you open in that question? Those 17 that the Japanese government has mentioned.
Yes, when you deal with the enforced disappearance cases, you never stop believing that they are alive. Now, yes, the DPRK, let me tell you that I met the national police in Japan, and we have a conversation in regard to these specific issues. They told me that the evidences presented by the DPRK in respect to those that DPRK argues that died, as you say, were dismissed. And basically they were DNA tests in some cases, and in the majority of cases there were death certificates provided by DPRK, but were dismissed by the authorities here in Japan. I did not have access to the files or to the evidence. This was the results of my conversation with the police.
Hilscher again from Germany. One short question. You have diplomatic relations with North Korea. North Korea is a member, of the United Nations.
Yes.
What sort of office do you have in Pyongyang? How many people are stationed there? What can they do? What can they not do? Can you give us a little detail about that?
Good. First, let me tell you, well, I heard that you met also a reporter some months ago who was here, the reporter on freedom of expression, I think. Yeah, right? Yeah. So, no, but just to let you know that we reporters, we are completely independent experts. What do I mean by independent experts? First, we do not receive a salary. It's a non-paid position. Second, we do not represent the interest of the states, of any particular state or any NGO. So we report in our capacity as independent experts. So what I'm trying to say is that we don't have an office. There is no an office of the special rapporteur, you see. We are supported by, for example, in my case, I'm supported by the Seoul office or the Geneva office of the United Nations Human Rights Office, by their staff. So they help, they collaborate with us. Here there is a colleague from the Seoul office joining me who has working with me, assisting, etc. But we do not have an office, you see. Now, you are asking me if there is, well, you should know that in Pyongyang there is what it is called the resident coordinator of the United Nations office. This is a person who coordinates the United Nations working in that country. You have UNICEF, you have Help Me, what other organizations? Yes, so you have a number, UNDP, you have a number of UN different agencies working on the country. You have the resident coordinator who is the UN person in the country. I have met representatives from those UN agencies because I wanted to hear about their work on the ground, to what extent they have access to the places that they would like to access to provide aid, etc., etc. So they have challenges, but what they are saying is they are gaining gradually some kind of access in the country. This is a kind of relationship and communication and source of information that I have from the UN people in Pyongyang, which is just that.
There's no direct UN representative there, just the various related organizations.
The resident coordinator is a UN person.
Oh, I see.
It's staff from the United Nations, but he's not human rights.
Okay.
This is what I'm saying. There is no a human rights staff or office from the United Nations in Pyongyang.
Okay, the gentleman there first, and Peter maybe.
I'm T.W. Kong, a professional associate member of this club. I'm South Korean, and I'm part of a separated family. So I sincerely wish you best of luck and best wishes, because it's also in my interest that you solve or get closer to resolution of this issue. Having said that, on both counts of accountability and engagement,
yes,
the whole world is found it over decades and decades very difficult, if not a dead end. Right? On the accountability side, some of the nations you mentioned, China and Russia, they themselves don't have great human rights records, you know. And on the negotiation side, you know that just lightly, the Harvard method of negotiation, those professors said it doesn't work in North Korea with the North Koreans, you know. So my question is, what is the source of leverage that you might have above and beyond all your predecessors and all these other governments, including the Japanese government that tried to get accountability about these abductees and so on? What is the new source of leverage? Given your background,
yes,
dealing with Myanmar and so forth, just brainstorm for me what new conceptual idea might, I know that you don't have a lot of data right now, but what new approach is conceivable above and beyond all these dead ends and dead corpses in terms of negotiations and so forth that we've encountered that does not lead anywhere, essentially? Any new ideas, if I may?
Thank you. Well, new ideas no longer exist in our world. I mean, I'm not going to bring any fantastic idea which will suddenly change the situation in North Korea and bring results to the separate families and the abductees. But you should know that after the COI report and after the human rights agenda on DPRK became more visible around the world, the DPRK government started to do new things, especially in respect to human rights. For example, the DPRK government is a member state of the Child Convention of the Rights of the Children, which is a human rights treaty body very important in the UN framework. They are part of that treaty body. You know what they did? They presented the report that they are mandated to present according to the treaty. They presented the report to the Child Committee. The DPRK is also a party to the CEDAW Convention, the Women's Discrimination Convention. You know what they did? They presented the report that they are mandated to present to the CEDAW Committee. In 2006, the United Nations created the Human Rights Council, actually replaced the Human Rights Commission to the Human Rights Council. That was a process in 2006. And they also created a new human rights mechanism, which some criticize, but it is there, which is the Universal Periodical Review. It's a review that states do among themselves. That's why some call them Universal Peer Review. You see? But it is a very important mechanism which is in place, which all states defend, because they say that that mechanism is not politicized, it's not under any selectivity, you know, it's not selected, and it doesn't have double standards. So they use the UPR process, the Universal Periodical Review. The DPRK participated and presented his reports. Now, you will respond, all right, Mr. Quintana, but if you look into those reports, if you look into their response to the UPR process, you will find the same kind of responses that we all know. Well, I will respond, be careful, because we need to look into the details. We need to know where there is a slightly small possibility to improve a specific human rights in the DPRK. So my challenge, together with the team, the human rights team, is to look into all those developments. Not only to seek maybe improvement even in small human rights areas, but also to try to build some kind of relationship through those issues, you see. I know how many people have dedicated their lives to the situation of the people in DPRK in respect to the separated families, the abduction issues, and I am new here as a rapporteur. My experience with Myanmar is, it is important to try to sit with the concerned authority in front, to look into their eyes and try face to face and try to get to know each other. This might look naive, and to be honest, when I started with the Myanmar mandate in 2008, I remember even some NGOs at that moment, human rights NGOs, saying that I was naive because I was trying to get into the country. But I got to the country, and I visited 9 times the country, and I traveled all over the country, even during the military times. So we are talking about different states, different countries. The nuclearization makes a strong difference, of course, between some But I think there is a challenge there, and I'm committed to go ahead with the mandate in the terms that I believe I have to go.
So this is going to be the last question.
So could I just confirm the dates? You said you met with, in Geneva, you met with a China official about going into the country. That was in
September.
September.
And I can check now, maybe with my notebook, and I let you know the dates. But I think it was about the 15 or 16 of September, but I cannot reconfirm now.
And the request for the meeting with the DPRK, was that?
Sorry, and also met with a Russian representative at that time in Geneva. And I also met the Cuban ambassador.
Okay, and the DPRK official, your request to them was around the same time?
Yes.
Or? Yeah. Okay, and the other final question is, you've dealt with Argentina and Myanmar with, absolutely horrific cases of human rights violations. From what you're seeing now, is this the worst? I mean, with North Korea, obviously.
Yes. Look, I'm not. I don't think I am in a position to respond this kind of question. As a human rights, as you say, as a human rights lawyer and practitioner, I have seen in my life many horrific human rights abuses, and I will not make a priority of what human rights abuses is worse than another one. I don't think I am not in a position to do that. I'm sorry.
Well, with that question, I think we will conclude the press conference. Thank you very much for coming. And as a tradition of the club, this is the 1-year honorary membership.
Oh, right.
And so please come back and...
So we are colleagues now.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate. And the role of the media today, I said it to your colleagues, to the local colleagues, and also in Seoul, is very important. It's very important at this time. Reliability of the information. I will not go into your responsibilities as journalists, but I really believe that you have a responsibility. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.